I always hated the country club gatherings. Every few weeks it felt like someone came up with another flimsy excuse to throw a fancy party where rich folks could show off. My wife, Karen, lived for them. Over the last year, her drinking had gone off the rails, and she'd often end up embarrassing both herself and me in front of our so-called friends. Karen and I had been married for 24 years. We had 3 kids, all in college now. We met while I was doing my MBA, hit it off fast, and for a while, life was good. But things started going flat about 10 years ago. I figured it was just what happens in long marriages. I still wanted affection and connection, but I stopped asking for it and settled into the idea that maybe we'd just coast into old age together, more roommates than soulmates. I had a solid job that paid well enough to cover college for the kids and all of Karen's spending habits. She never worked, choosing instead to throw herself into community events and social causes, most of which doubled as excuses to lunch with wealthy friends and hit the spa. Karen still looked great, credit to her personal trainer and weekly salon visits. As for me, I was a bit soft in the middle, gray at the temples, and tired. I kept myself dressed sharp, part job requirement, part Karen's taste, but underneath, I was restless. Bored, even. I started daydreaming about living somewhere smaller. Simpler. The house was way too big for just us, and it was a money pit. But every time I brought it up, Karen shot it down. She loved her big house, her social life, her scene. One night at the club, I was wandering around trying to avoid another pointless conversation about golf when I saw Karen again, clearly deep into the wine, maybe more. She was with a group of women, laughing loud. I walked over just in time to hear her blurt out, honestly, if it weren't for Brian Hughes, I wouldn't even know what good sex was. Then she laughed, like it was the funniest thing she'd ever said. Dead silence. The women looked stunned. Karen turned and saw me, her face draining a little before she tried to smile. Michael. I didn't know you were here, she slurred. You weren't supposed to hear that. That was it for me. I set my glass down and walked out. Instead of going home, I headed straight for the airport and caught a flight to Reno. Reno had always sounded better to me than Las Vegas, less glitz, more grit. I wanted space to think, not flashing lights and wild parties. I booked a room at a casino and dropped $20,000 into an account just to get comped. It's a weird system. Those casino accounts don't trigger federal reporting unless you win big, so you can park money quietly. I wasn't there to gamble anyway. I just needed time to clear my head. By Saturday, I was up around noon, grabbing a burger and thinking hard about life. Reno's charm hit me. Dry air, blue skies, a river running through town. It felt like the kind of place a guy could start over. I wasn't planning to get divorced just yet, but I did picture myself tossing my wedding band into the Truckee River. Walking past a real estate office, I spotted a listing for a small furnished condo. I went in just to ask, but within a couple of hours, I had a lease-to-own deal on the place. Buying outright while married would raise flags, but leasing? That flew under the radar. I offered a big deposit and the seller agreed. Karen had never paid much attention to finances anyway. She never even logged into our bank account. That had always been my job. I spent the rest of the day shopping. I picked up a beat-up Ford Focus from a used car lot good enough to get around town. Then I hit the stores and stocked up on the basics. Clothes, toiletries, some house stuff. I also opened up accounts at 4 different casinos and wrote checks totaling $660,000. Each deposit was documented in a small notebook I kept in my pocket, just in case I ever needed a record of gambling losses. That night, I went back to the casino restaurant for sushi. Same waitress as breakfast, a woman named Abby, according to her name tag. She had a black eye, poorly hidden with makeup. She was in her mid-40s, sweet but nervous, clearly new at the job. Your name tag says Anna, I said. That really you? No, she smiled, closest one they had. I'm Abby. Well, Abby, I'll take another coffee. And a bigger tip if you tell me what happened to your eye. Or, she said with a dry smile, you can leave a smaller tip and I'll pretend you didn't ask. I backed off, told her it was rude of me to pry. She brought the coffee. Sunday morning, I had breakfast there again. Abby was back on shift, and this time, after the meal, I had an idea. I need to leave town, I told her. Just for a week or so. I've got a condo here, 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy. Would you be willing to keep an eye on it while I'm gone? You could stay there if you want. Free place, no strings attached. She blinked. Are you serious? Completely. It's not far from here. I'm also leaving my car. It's gassed up, yours to use. I'll call before I return. There's an answering machine. She hesitated, clearly suspicious. But I could see she was also thinking about it. I'm not pressuring you, I said. If you don't feel comfortable, I'll come get the keys when I'm back. I handed her a napkin with the address and the keys to the car and condo. Then I was off, caught a flight back home that afternoon. When I landed, I grabbed my car from the lot and swung by the house. Karen's car wasn't in the driveway, so I slipped inside, packed a week's worth of clothes, shoes, and my laptop. I also grabbed my passport and birth certificate, just in case. My company owned a few small apartment-style units for staff use, and because of my position, I had no trouble reserving one. I booked it for 2 weeks, plugged in my laptop, and then called my oldest son, David. I told him that his mother and I were working through some things and that I would be staying somewhere else for a little while. I asked him to let his sisters at Auburn know and to tell them not to worry. Even though all 3 kids went to the same out-of-state school, I could still handle the tuition, thankfully. After we hung up, I charged my phone and took a long shower. All I'd eaten on the plane was a handful of peanuts, and I was hungry for something real. Monday was an absolute whirlwind. First, I headed to the bank and took out a second mortgage on our house, way more than the place was worth now. I knew by the end of the month, everything was going to shift. Then I called Auburn University and arranged to prepay the kids' tuition in full. I wired $240,000 to the school. That left me with just over $200,000 in a cashier's check, all of it earmarked for Reno. I cashed out 2 certificates of deposit, paid the penalties, and emptied my money market account. I left the credit cards untouched for now. I'd let those ride until month's end. Running late for work, I rushed into the building where Margaret, my longtime secretary, handed me my usual black coffee with a smirk. "Morning, Mr. Terrell," she said. "You going to tell me what happened at the country club Friday, or should I just believe the gossip?" "Margaret," I replied, "the gossip is all true. Anything else you need to know?" She smiled knowingly. "What do you need me to do?" "Find everything you can on Brian Hughes. I think he used to work here. Also, keep my calendar intact. Delegate any tasks that need doing. And if my wife calls or shows up, security is to keep her out." Margaret nodded and headed off. I'd figured all of this would take weeks to sort through, but suddenly it felt like I might have everything wrapped up within days. I called my lawyer, Daniel Collins, an old college buddy, and scheduled an urgent meeting. He never liked Karen, which made him the perfect person for this job. When I walked into his office, he greeted me with, "I was at the club Friday night, Mike. I've got a good guess why you're here." "You're right," I said. I thought I could tolerate everything as long as she didn't humiliate me in public. But that night broke something. He handed me some forms. "I'll need full access to your financials and a couple powers of attorney. My assistant will call you once everything's ready. One more thing," I added. "This weekend lit something up in me. I've developed a gambling habit. Spent the last 2 days in Reno. Lost quite a bit. I'll be heading back next weekend." Daniel raised an eyebrow but gave me a grin. "Keeping records of all this?" "I am," I said. "Detailed ones." "Then let's not say another word about it," he replied, handing me a financial worksheet to complete. After leaving Daniel's office, my stomach reminded me I'd skipped lunch again. Back at the office, Margaret had pulled together a report on Brian Hughes. She also recommended I speak with Martha Gable in HR. When Margaret made a suggestion like that, I listened. Martha was tough as nails, hair pulled tight, no nonsense. She greeted me calmly, but there was tension in her voice. "Margaret briefed me," she said. "I don't deal in gossip. I deal in facts." I nodded. "Lay it on me." She closed the door and got right to it. 3 years ago, your wife approached Brian Hughes at a company function. They both drank too much. Before the night was over, they'd had sex in one of the private offices. Brian was engaged at the time. Wedding was a month away. Karen threatened to tell his fiancée unless he kept seeing her. She pressured him into continuing the affair. I sat in silence, stunned. He came to me for help. I couldn't say anything back then, but I transferred him to the Dallas office. Once he moved, Karen backed off. He never told his wife. I exhaled, trying to stay composed. "Thank you, Martha. I appreciate your honesty." "Brian's paid for what he did," she said. "Don't ruin his life over something your wife started." "I won't," I replied. Being with her was punishment enough. Margaret cleared my calendar for the afternoon. Even with Karen blowing up my phone and trying to get into the building, I kept my focus. I invited Margaret to dinner, half joking, but she declined, laughing that her husband wouldn't approve. "Ask Martha instead," she joked. That afternoon, I sat down with the company's legal department to start preparing my exit. Payouts, retirement, insurance, and the rest of it. The meeting took longer than I'd expected. Closing my savings account went smoothly, but cashing out retirement was a pain. Afterward, I ate alone, again, but couldn't stop thinking about Abby, the waitress from Reno. I wondered if she'd moved into the condo, if she was still pulling doubles. I barely knew her, but for some reason, I felt drawn back there. I told myself it was foolish. Just nerves and stress. The next morning, I cashed out 2 whole life insurance policies and canceled a couple of term ones. The payout from the whole life plans surprised me. They'd built up more value than I expected. I set everything in motion to receive the checks the next day. I also canceled the insurance policy on Karen's Lexus. The lease was in her name, but the insurance had been under mine. After swinging by Daniel's office again to sign more paperwork, I returned to the office. Margaret was waiting with fresh coffee. Before your meeting with Charles, you might want to talk to Stephen Hayes in settlements, she advised. Stephen worked in the basement, a dim, forgotten corner of the company. We sat down in private. 6 years ago, he began, your wife had another fling. This time with Stephen Hale. After an event. She wouldn't stop contacting him afterward. When he tried to end things, she threatened to tell his wife. He called her bluff. His wife found out. Threw him out. He started drinking and was eventually fired. Last I heard, she paid his wife 10 grand to keep quiet. Thank you, I said, standing up. You did the right thing. Upstairs, I met with Charles Parker, the company president. He didn't ask many questions, just gave me his card and told me to call when all the legal pieces were in place. No drama. No apologies. Back in my office, Margaret was watching Karen through the window, where she was having a full-blown meltdown with the security guard. She's been down there 20 minutes, she said. What do you want me to do? Nothing. The guards have it handled. Right now, I just want to find someone to eat dinner with. I hate eating alone. I checked in with Daniel. He couldn't proceed with anything until the last checks cleared, but I assured him I was financially stable. I told him I'd leave for Reno early and stay until the money was gone. Throughout the day, people popped in to say Karen was still trying to find me, even getting her friends to call their husbands at work to track me down. When it was time to leave, I walked out to see Karen sitting on the hood of my car. Margaret tossed me her keys. Take my Civic, she said. Gives my husband an excuse to pick me up and treat me to dinner. Then she looked me in the eye. You're not planning anything stupid in Dallas, are you? Nope, I said, forcing a smile. Just tying up loose ends. No revenge. I promise. I ended up driving to Allentown and grabbing dinner at Outback Steakhouse. Nothing fancy, just a decent steak and some quiet. I made it back to the company apartment just before midnight. The next morning was a blur. I signed off on more paperwork with Daniel, shut down every bank account I had, and canceled every credit card. I even set the wheels in motion to cut off the utilities at the house next week. By the time I picked up the checks from the insurance company, the bank, and my employer, I was shocked by how much I was actually worth. I got myself a new phone and shut off the old ones for good. Even managed to sell that country club membership for $23,000 to a guy I used to play golf with. Seemed like he was just waiting for me to give it up. My replacement at the company was already in place, a guy from Boston who looked like he knew what he was doing. Margaret didn't even need to train him. She knew more about running that office than I ever did. I packed everything I wanted into a couple of cheap suitcases. There were a few things at the house I wouldn't have minded grabbing, but none of it was worth dealing with Karen again. Margaret told me to hang on to her car. Her husband would pick it up from the airport. I figured anything I forgot, I could always buy again in Reno. Suddenly, it hit me. I had done everything I needed to do. Every dollar I had was in cash now. No accounts, no stocks, no paper trail. Just the house, and I was fine leaving that behind. AirBlue moved my flight up without a fuss. I called Daniel at home. Hey, man, I said. Just letting you know I'm flying out tonight. You all set on your end? I've got everything I need, he said. I'll serve the papers tomorrow, but you still need to send over the financial info. You might as well hand them to her in person, I told him. I'll start sending proof she's financially reckless. Just be careful. Karen's going to come at us with some fancy Philly lawyer if she can find one. I'll do my best, Mike, he said. Keep your expectations in check and a legal bill low. And hey, look into that guy Stephen Hale. He might need help, and if anyone's going to offer it, it ought to be me. He promised to check and told me to be safe. Later that night, I called the condo and left a voicemail, hoping Abby was still there. I wasn't sure if she'd answer, but I told her I'd call again and not to worry if someone showed up. I didn't know much about her, but something about the way she carried herself made me trust her. I landed in Dallas early enough to enjoy a quiet breakfast, then headed straight to Brian Hughes' office. When he walked in and saw me sitting there, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Mr. Anderson," he said coldly. "I'd say it's nice to see you, but we both know that'd be a lie." "Relax," I told him. "I'm not here to chew you out. I came to clear the air. You don't deserve to carry the blame alone. Karen caused most of the mess, and I was too blind to see it." He looked stunned. "I don't know what to say." "Say this," I told him, handing him one of Daniel's business cards. "Call my lawyer. He might need your side of the story, maybe a notarized statement. It won't get back to your wife. This isn't about revenge." We shook hands, and that was it. Brian didn't deserve to have his whole life trashed over something Karen forced on him. An hour later, I was back on a plane to Reno, trying to make sense of how I got here. I'd spent years working myself to the bone for my family. I thought I was doing everything right. Maybe I wasn't perfect, but Karen didn't just cheat, she humiliated me. She took everything I gave her and stomped on it in front of strangers. That kind of betrayal? You don't walk it off. When I landed in Reno, I got the first good surprise I'd had in weeks. Abby was there waiting at baggage claim. She was in jeans and a button-down shirt, way different than her diner uniform. "Evening," I said. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Well, I figured since I had your car, it was the least I could do," she replied with a soft smile. "You working tonight?" "Nope. Thanks to you. I cut back my hours." "Oh, I wasn't trying to be generous. Just wanted an excuse to spend time with you," I joked. She raised an eyebrow. "And what are you going to do now that you've got me all to yourself?" "Honestly? No idea. Got any suggestions?" Back at the condo, I noticed she'd cleaned the place up a bit, small touches here and there. It made it feel more like home. I took her out for prime rib to say thanks. She enjoyed the wine more than the steak. "How's the divorce coming?" she asked over dinner. "Slow," I admitted. "Turns out you've got to live here 6 weeks to file." "So much for easy." Abby stared at her food. "I didn't leave Nick just for the divorce. I left to get away. The divorce is just a formality." That hit me hard. At first, I thought the divorce was everything. But now, I just wanted Karen out of my life. She didn't deserve a dime more from me. We talked for hours, movies, hobbies, old jobs. She never mentioned kids, and I didn't ask. That night, we stayed in separate rooms. Next morning, she was gone for work, but left me fresh coffee. That's all I needed. I skipped breakfast and called Daniel. "Michael," he said, "I've got some bad news. Promise me you won't shoot the messenger." "Oh, great. What now?" "Karen went nuclear. She called the cops, got a restraining order on your accounts, your house, even your adult kids. She's got the IRS looking at your retirement, the SEC's poking around, and some private investigator is trying to track you down." I was stunned. "Daniel, I want no part of any of this." I figured. Just know if anyone official asks where you are, I'll have to tell them. I can't risk my license. "I get it," I told him. "I won't call again for a while." It hit me like a truck. My whole casino plan was shot. I had to pivot. Thank God Abby left me the car. I packed my duffel bag full of checks and cash and hit 6 casinos, cashing everything out, turning checks into chips, then cashing them again. The casinos didn't blink. They were used to this kind of stuff. By noon, I had a stack of cash and chips in my bag and nothing in my name. I drove out to Carson City, rented a safety deposit box at a no-questions-asked bank, and stashed most of it there. I kept $55,000 for expenses. Back at the condo, things took a turn. Abby was in a panic, trying to put things back in order. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "It's my fault. I didn't know Nick followed me." She had a fresh black eye and a swollen cheek. "We gotta go," I said. And we did. We spent the night at a roadside motel in Grass Valley. 1 bed, but I didn't try anything. I grabbed takeout and some makeup to help her hide the bruises. She kept apologizing until she finally fell asleep. Next day, we drove to Sacramento for clothes and supplies. I extended the motel for 2 more nights. We got closer, but there was nothing physical. Just peace. That was more than I ever had with Karen in recent years. But I'd left my laptop, passport, and everything important back at the condo. That was dumb. I knew I had to go back. I trusted Abby more than anyone now. "You ever been to Mexico?" I asked her. "No. Are we going?" "Maybe. If things go bad, I want you to be safe." "Michael, you don't owe me anything." I explained I'd hidden money, legally earned, but hidden from Karen, and if anything happened, Abby would need to go to Guadalajara. I gave her instructions. Later, we went back to Carson City. I added her name to the deposit box and gave her a key. We returned to the condo cautiously. I told her to stay in the car while I checked the lot. Then I heard it. Michael Anderson, turn around. Skinny guy in a long leather coat, pointing a black pistol right at me. You know who I am? He asked. No. Should I? I'm Milo. Your wife sent me. What do you want? Your wedding ring and your wallet. I raised an eyebrow. The ring I get. But why the wallet? He grinned. Gotta make it look like a robbery. A robbery? Of what? Your wife hired me to kill you, Mr. Anderson. I just stared at him. I hope she paid you up front. Because she's dead broke. Right as I was talking to Milo, everything blew up. From across the parking garage, 3 big Italian guys in long coats came striding in, one of them shouting, Mike Anderson, we need to talk. That caught Milo off guard. He didn't expect company. The men saw the gun in his hand, and things escalated fast. They all reached under their coats at the same time. I didn't wait to see how it ended. I dove over a low concrete divider and took off running. Gunshots rang out behind me, bouncing off the concrete walls. I saw Abby out of the corner of my eye, bolting down the street. Then a black SUV pulled up, 2 guys in suits jumped out. Feds, probably. Guess they'd been watching the place. It was chaos. But in that madness, I slipped out. Abby and the car were gone. There was no going back. I didn't care who got shot anymore. I just needed to disappear. 3 different groups were hunting me. Each one had their reasons. It didn't matter anymore. I was too hot. All this started because I wanted to get away from a cheating wife. How the hell did it get to a hitman in a parking garage? Maybe Karen really believed there was still life insurance on me. Joke's on her. I canceled that months ago. I guess I gave her too much credit. I took a bus to San Francisco. Burned through about $1,000 in the first day just to get a new ID and a fake social security number. I found a cheap room with a shared bathroom and grabbed a job waiting tables at a low-key diner. Took a while, but I got the hang of it. Regulars started asking for me by name. My old phone had long since been shut off. I picked up a prepaid with 50 minutes, enough to reach out. First call I made was to Daniel. Hey, Daniel. It's Mike. Mike B. Good to hear your voice. Things are nuts, but not as bad as they were. Where are you? Let's just say somewhere safe. Last time we talked, people were crawling all over me. Am I still a target? Not, he said. Things settled down. Karen got arrested. That stopped me cold. Arrested? For what? You remember Milo? The guy who pulled the gun on you? Turns out he got hurt pretty bad after you bolted. Ended up in a Reno hospital, singing like a bird. Told the cops Karen hired him to kill you for 10 grand. She stiffed him on the payment, so he sold her out. Cops believed him. She's in jail. Yup. No bail, either. I paused, thinking. I might have helped her if she hadn't tried to have me shot. Let her parents handle it. Daniel offered to restart the divorce proceedings. I gave him the green light. Oh, your kids came back home when they heard about the arrest. They were worried at first, but once they heard what really happened, they just wanted to know you're okay. I'll call them soon. And your casino plan? That money shuffle. It fell apart, I admit it. But I'll sort it out. Before hanging up, I asked the one question I'd been dreading. Daniel, did Karen ever say why she wanted me dead? Nope, he replied. Best guess is the insurance. She had no idea it was gone. I thanked him and ended the call. I couldn't bring myself to tell my kids everything. Not yet. Some things just hurt too much. A week later, I borrowed a car and drove to Carson City. Went straight to the safety deposit box. Empty. No note. No clue where Abby went. I had trusted her. Gave her access. And maybe she bailed. Couldn't blame her if she did. There was enough cash in that box to vanish anywhere in the world. But I had to know. So I booked a cheap group trip to Guadalajara. Scraped together the money. A few of the guys from the restaurant were on the same trip. They were planning sightseeing. I was chasing a ghost. The first 2 days in Guadalajara were rough. The Libertad market was massive, much bigger than I'd pictured. Sitting there with a cheap coffee, I kept wondering, Bangkok? Tahiti? Where did she go? I almost gave up. Then, on day 3, just as I was about to call it quits, I heard a voice behind me. About time, Michael. Where have you been? I turned around. There she was, Abby. Hands on her hips, wearing a wide-brimmed straw hat with a red ribbon. I didn't say a word. Just walked over and kissed her, our first real kiss. That's a lousy excuse for being late, she said, grinning. The second kiss came with a lift and a hug. I missed you, Abby. You better, she replied, laughing. Come on. Let's grab lunch. We walked hand in hand through the market. I felt like a new man. Don't be mad, she said during lunch. I used some of the money. The rest is in a local bank. But I bought us a house. I raised an eyebrow. A small place. Real pretty. You'll love it. Turns out, she was right. It's a beautiful hacienda. And I'm with a woman who didn't run when things got ugly. Karen's parents bailed her out and paid for her legal defense. She ended up with 5 to 8 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Brian Hughes, remember him? Gave Daniel a statement. No one knows why, but it helped. Daniel even found Stephen Hale. Poor guy was sober but struggling. He wanted to start a hot dog cart, so I gave him the $2,400 to do it. The IRS got off my back for $4,000. Milo, Abby's ex, and his brothers are all locked up in Nevada. I was in the clear, free to go back to my old job. I even got a promotion. Once Abby's divorce is finalized in Mexico, we're getting married. The kids are flying down for the wedding during spring break. The house here? Beautiful, but we're keeping it as a vacation spot. Abby's open to wherever we end up, as long as we're together. She keeps joking about wanting to meet Karen someday. I told her that'll be interesting. My plans didn't go the way I expected, but you know what? I can't complain.